For decades, Tom Cruise has been accepting one mission: to entertain and wow audiences with his awe-inspiring stunts captured on screen. The Mission Impossible franchise has more or less been Tom's vehicle to showcase these death-defying stunts and his seemingly inability to age. Now, 30 years after the first film in the franchise, Hollywood and Zeno's greatest disciple has returned for the final reckoning. Hey everyone, I'm Joe from Create Context, and today we are talking about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, directed by Christopher McQuarrie. McQuarrie has been the head writer and director for the Mission Impossible series since the fifth film in the franchise, but the series has always felt like a vehicle for Tom Cruise and his over-the-top style of entertainment. The Mission Impossible franchise is an interesting one, as it started as this kind of gritty spy noir reboot of a television series and was directed by the great Brian De Palma. After the success of the first, the series opted for a different director for each entry, giving the subsequent films a massive tonal shift from one another. While the first played like an elevated spy thriller, the second film was a super stylized action film helmed by John Woo. The third film brought on J.J. Abrams, who made that movie a bit of a mix of the two. There were big action set pieces and Abrams' signature flashy lighting, but it also felt more grounded than the second entry. The fourth film brought in Brad Bird to direct, his first foray into live-action filmmaking, and it was clear Cruise was given a ton of control over the production of that film. The next four films have all been helmed by McQuarrie, and it has been sort of the perfect partnership between the two, with the Mission Impossible franchise sustaining a signature formula that is both thrilling and visually stunning. Each Mission Impossible flick follows the same basic plot. The film opens with a fun but contained action set piece. A MacGuffin is introduced. Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt and his team have to pull off some type of heist mission for said MacGuffin, and the film ends with a larger-than-life action set piece. The Final Reckoning doesn't deviate from this formula, but the stakes are considerably higher in this one, and I think that's earned for the final installment in the movie. But also, the themes of this film, along with the previous Dead Reckoning, feel extremely pointed at the era of filmmaking Tom Cruise is fighting against. Basic plot of The Final Reckoning has Ethan Hunt and his team tracking down a virus to destroy an all-powerful artificial intelligence known as the Entity. The Entity is determined to bring about the apocalypse by launching every country's nuclear warheads at each other, or something like that. The plot, though painfully over-explained in this entry, is always just sort of backdrop to the main event, which is Tom Cruise doing his own stunts in front of gloriously shot IMAX cameras. Cruise famously chooses to do many of his own stunts, and it's how these films are able to capture the actor flying through the air on a dirt bike or literally hanging from the wings of airplanes. Cruise has also been noticeably vague with his personal life ever since the famous Oprah couch incident, and instead chooses to rarely talk about anything in interviews other than his movies and how much he loves making films. And the man truly loves movies and entertaining us. It's on full display here and has been over the entirety of his career. So this plotline of an all-powerful evil AI hell-bent on destroying the planet that can only be stopped by the one man willing to perform his own death-defying stunts feels pointed, to say the least. It's a not so thinly veiled condemnation of the CGI riddled films coming from every Hollywood studio. And while the Mission Impossible franchise, this film included, certainly does use CGI, it is in no way the main attraction. This isn't a Marvel movie that ends with a CGI slugfest between two giant otherworldly beasts. This is a movie where we get an extended 20 to 30 minute sequence of Tom Cruise hanging every way but up off of a crop duster plane as it flies through the air. The heist sequence in the middle of this movie is incredible and has Cruise doing a litany of acrobatic moves underwater with massive equipment strapped to him. Ethan Hunt is going to defeat the Entity or die trying, and Tom Cruise is going to prove that movies are still the most exciting when actors are willing to put their entire self into their performance, no matter the risk. It's honestly refreshing and a little bit awe-inspiring, if we're being honest, watching these Mission Impossible films and seeing the lengths Tom Cruise is willing to go to in order to entertain audiences. This man clearly loves his craft and he's devoted his entire life to it. Getting in and maintaining an incredible physique is only part of his process. The rest is learning how to fly airplanes for Top Guns and hanging off of them for Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is the type of film that makes me love movies. I thought to myself about midway through this flick while Cruise is racing against the clock in a sunken submarine, man, I love movies because they are cool. And this is a cool movie where the actors are doing cool things. It's impossible not to be taken out of the narrative when we're seeing these larger-than-life spectacles being portrayed on screen by one of the biggest actors on the planet. The Final Reckoning is a movie that reminds you movies are cool and the magic of filmmaking. It has two very good action set pieces, but that doesn't mean that this is necessarily a good movie. It suffers from many of the problems that every film has in this series. There's a ton of overcomplicated expositionary dialogue, specifically in the first hour of this film. This first act is painfully long, and the emotional and character beats that happen just didn't hit for me. There's a team here, and while Haley Atwell is great and Simon Pegg is also very good, I did not connect with this team the way I have other teams in the franchise, mainly like when Jeremy Renner and Rebecca Ferguson were part of the crew. Each line in the film is delivered with too much melodrama, and the character of Ethan Hunt is still painfully one note. He really only exists to do the right thing in the most altruistic way with little to no character arc. That's the same in every film. It's the same here. And this is why I really hope this Mission Impossible is truly the final reckoning. I know a lot of people don't vibe with Tom Cruise and his Hollywood persona. He had a very public image for most of the 90s and early 2000s, and after some very public failed marriages and some deep dives into a religion that he's closely associated with, many fans kind of turned their back on Tom and now can only see him as the guy who freaked out about Katie Holmes and has tied to this borderline cult religion. Top Gun: Maverick was a bit of a redemption arc story for Cruise, but one that took years for him to achieve. Cruise abandoned many of his big aspirations and serious roles in favor of just doing what has worked for him, putting his life and physical body on the line for incredible spectacle performances. But Tom Cruise is actually a really solid actor. He just got a little too big, was aligned with a religion that was a little too weird, and became the butt of too many jokes during the time of both the tabloids and early internet celebrity sites. If you look at his career before the Katie Holmes and Oprah incident, Cruise was taking on interesting roles with high-profile directors and, for the most part, nailing those performances. He was fantastic in Cameron Crowe's Jerry Maguire, took a huge risk with his role in Oliver Stone's Born on the 4th of July, and even starred opposite his real-life wife in Stanley Kubrick's final film, a film and production that very possibly ended that marriage. Even the first Mission Impossible film never felt like the big action spectacle that we know the series for today. It was a controversial reboot of a very conservative TV show that was made by Brian De Palma. Cruise has given everything for his art, his personal life, his marriages, and his work in the film industry. Yeah, maybe he's a little weird and aligned with belief systems I don't agree with, but the guy can act. I hope this is the last Mission Impossible just because I want to see Cruise get back to interesting roles that push his capabilities, not just physically, but to push his craft. My favorite performance of Tom Cruise is his in Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia, a magnificent film from one of cinema's greatest directors. Tom took that small role just to work with someone like PTA. I hope after 15 years of entertaining and putting his body on the line, Cruise goes after more roles like that. Ones where he can entertain while also showing the world the breadth of his craft. It's one he takes very seriously, that he's devoted his life to, and it's a shame we only get to see him jumping off buildings. Thank you guys so much for hanging out at the Weekly Movie Minute. If you like this, please give us a subscribe. That's super cool. We'll be back next week with Bring Her Back, and we should be back on a little bit of a normal schedule. Thank you everyone for hanging in there. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time.